Welcome back to the podcast with me, your host, Pete Tigers. This is going to be another one out on the water. The reason for this is that I came out of retirement and I put Sean at the Wild Trout Trust asked me to come out of retirement and see if I would offer a day's guided fishing for the Wild Trout Trust Auction. And as somebody who's been a member from the days when it was the Wild Trout Society, I felt it was time to do so. And I'm out. Part of the deal was to spend a day's fishing with the recipient. I haven't put lucky in front of that just yet, so we'll see what happens. But I'm with Malcolm Bond, who very kindly put his hand in his pocket and supported the Wild Trout Trust. And I know he's been a big supporter. He's put his waders on and he's got a Wild Trout Trust cap on as well. So that speaks volumes about it. But it's lovely. Malcolm has a affinity with the West Country, but he's not fished the tour here for trout before, so it's lovely to be able to show him my backyard. But Malcolm, welcome along to the podcast. Thank you hugely for supporting the Wild Trout Trust Auction. Welcome to the tour.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. It's a super spot through here. I have to say that, as you say, I've not fished this section of the river at all, so it's nice to be on what looks like a spectacularly trouty piece of water.
Yeah, we're hoping. We've just got here. There's a lot of midges around at the moment, so I can see large amounts of them in front of us at the moment. And we've come to a pool. If I've listened to the podcast, I talk about this one about 4 acres, and this pool gives me a good idea of how the river is feeling, how it's looking. We got a relatively brisk downstream wind that we're going to have to deal with a little bit. With that wind blowing, we're going to be thinking about stuff being blown off trees, those sorts of things as well. Seen a few small fish rise, and the sun looks down. It's a bright day. There's barely any clouds in the sky, and usually the way that this happens is that the sun's looking down into the river, downstream into the river, and as the day progresses, it comes round behind us. So what we're looking for is some shaded areas. We're going to try and see if we can find one of these mythical tour trout, a nice size one. I've got a few marks. I was down here a couple of weekends ago with John Ogborn, and we covered a sizable fish that was rising with no joys. And where that is, it's sheltered a little bit more, and we might spec downstream a little bit. But Malcolm, tell us a little bit about your fishing, where you're based, where you fish, what sort of fishing you enjoy doing.
Yeah, well, I'm based in Trowbridge in Wiltshire, and I've been fishing since the age of 5 years old, when my dad took me on the River Wye at Ross, and we caught 2 12-ounce roach, and that got me hooked for life. And I'd fish for coarse and mainly trout, but coarse as well, and salmon sometimes. I wouldn't call myself a good angler. I catch a reasonable number of fish, but I'm not an expert in the sense of catching lots of fish all the time. I enjoy being on the river or the lake, and I do a lot of fishing in Scotland, the far northwest, Scowrie and Assynt, my favourite haunts other than down in the West Country. My family hails from North Devon originally, so I'm back on family home territory, although my grandfather moved away probably close on 100 years ago. There's still a lot of bonds down in the northwest Devon, Heartland area, and so it's nice to be back again. Exmoor is probably my usual haunt in the West Country. I fish on the Lynn and the Barl and the Exe when I get the chance to, the wild brown trout in the rivers is my kind of favourite fishing angle at the present moment. Well, so I do fish for coarse fish, perch on the Kennet-Naven Canal, and chub on our section of the Froome at Tellisford near Trowbridge, and occasionally for lake rainbows like Chew and Blagdon and what have you. So that's kind of where I'm at in a nutshell. Anything you would like me to add to that?
Well, I was going to ask you, you're wearing a Wild Trout Trust cap, and you've been a keen supporter for many years, haven't you?
For the same length of time as you have, I think, roughly. I joined in 97. My membership number is sort of in the high 90s, low hundreds. I can't remember precisely the number, but it was early days. With the Mike Weaver got me to to join. He suggested I joined, and I did. Mike, I've been in contact with Mike over the years. I know he's one of the founders, and it's going to be happy 90th birthday for Mike this year. I think it's May. Is it May, his birthday? Yeah. So his books have been a great source of inspiration to me as well. So I'm hoping that today I shall put some of the expertise that Mike and Pete are going to share with me to good use. So I'm looking as I'm talking. I'm looking to see what's rising, and other than one or two very small browns, there's nothing happening at the moment. But it's early days, so it does look a very trouty piece of water, I have to say. And there's lots of shaded areas where I'm sure the trout are going to be hanging out, even with quite bright sunshine that we've got at the moment. So up there, I know that we're not on video, but I'm looking at sort of a back eddy at the top end of the pool under a big tree. That looks quite a good spot up there. So I'm itching to get in, but I'm not going to go wading straight in. I'll just watch and wait and see what happens, see what flies are going to start to hatch. There should be hopefully some upwing flies, and possibly some sedges coming off as well. It's a bit early for sedges, but they are about. And so let's see what happens.
Yeah, it is some. It's lovely when somebody's pointing out where they think they might find some fish as well, and he's dead right, and that's always pleasing to see that. We're going to probably look a little bit downstream. We might make some speculative casts. Like Malcolm says, there is the odds and sods coming off. I think, if we get the wind dropping a little bit, actually there is a caddis just flying upstream at the moment. So they're around at the moment. There's, like I say, there's plenty of midges. There's all sorts of stuff at the moment. So we might throw a caddis on and see. And we're sort of on river left as you look downstream, and river right is where the flow goes, and it's a lovely, nice, sticky, slow flow that the fish like to sit into. There's a sort of a lip there and it's deep enough. It's about thigh deep. And we're going to try and get across there. We got Monty as well. He's coming along with us, the dog. So he's with us. He's standing with us at the moment. And for him, this is work right now. So he's excited to see what will happen. And I think the plan probably will be to keep an eye. There's a big oak tree we're standing in front of that, as Malcolm says, gives a lot of shade. And often we'll see fish moving around in there. Hasn't been, I've barely fished for trout this year down here. So I had a weekend, I think I just mentioned, with John Ogbourne, and we had a few hours down here and had a lovely time, and had a nice trout that started rising. So managed to catch that. He had a couple, and then I had one more as well. So that's encouraging. Different conditions, warmer than it has been. So I think they're talking about 19 degrees. It's about the 29th, I think, of April today. There is stuff starting to hatch. So that's encouraging. I think we might speculate in. Oh, there's a rise. Look, that was a better fish. So we've seen one that we might have a go at already. So that's encouraging to see. That was a nice sip. That was an emerger. I think he was eating there. So it might be that we try something along those sorts of lines and go from there. It's a tricky cast because I don't sort of manicure the river here. So there is a tree branch hanging down and its lowest branch is in the water. I think the best way to cover that's going to be with a downstream presentation. We'll put an emerger pattern on and give that a go, wade out there and see how we get on. But yeah, it's feeling good. It's lovely. It's often that you can stand here and do what you were doing before, getting to the river, start casting, and that works. That can be great, but just by spending 5 or 10 minutes watching for a bit, seeing what's happening, the river gives you all the clues, it gives you all the information as to what's going on. And yeah, I think that's a slightly nicer fish, so we might give that a go. I'll keep you in touch with how that's going and what happens. I suspect Malcolm's locked in on him now. I suspect he's a oncer at the moment. We don't get fish. here in the West Country with the acidic water that we don't get fish rising hard here. So there is something that's provoked a bit of interest. I'm hoping that develops into a little bit more. But by marking that fish, we've got somebody that we can go at. We know that there's somebody relatively high in the water that may have a look at a dry fly. Is that your preferred method of fishing, Malcolm?
Yes, it is. I mean, I'm open to any method of fishing. Dry fly, nymph, teams of wets down and across. Also, and you mentioned downstream dry fly. Yes, there's no reason why it shouldn't work. If it's awkward spot where the fish is, then you use whatever method you can, within reason and legal, to get a fly to the fish. So downstream dry is fine by me. I would try to use as long a leader as I possibly could, but given the amount of the wind and the overhang of the branches, you've got to be a little bit careful about that. But the longer the leader, the better. So probably 9, 10, 11 feet maybe. We'll see how we get on. But the wind has picked up, so that's going to be fun. Downstream wind.
It will be an interesting one, but we can get ourselves relatively close to the fish there. And it's interesting what Malcolm says, and I just touched on downstream dry, blatant plug as well, that Paul Proctor I can't remember if it's the current or the one that's just about to drop, talks about fishing a downstream dry and those presentations. I know we've got a piece coming from somebody who was fishing in Bosnia and said how the only way that you can catch the fish is by a downstream dry. They have to see the fly first. So it has lots of uses. I know there are certain parts of the world where you are unable to do that, but as a whole, it works really, really well. So I think that's probably going to be our best approach, is to wade out sort of mid-river and then cover that fish. I think we'll put an emerger pattern on and see how we get along, and hopefully I can report back something positive very, very soon. It's very interesting actually for me that I've not sort of taken somebody fishing as a guide for quite some time, so I'm sort of anxious that that Malcolm has a great day, but also that first fish in the net's always pleasing, and I'd love him to find one of these big guys too.
It'll be a great day even without fish, Pete, so don't worry.
Well, we've hardly fished any water so far this morning, but I think it's fair to say that we got quite a strong wind here, and we sat on one fish that was rising that we talked to you about earlier. And could we get it to take? No. We changed a lot of stuff up and Malcolm covered it really, really well. But it wasn't rising hard. There's some caddis around, there's some midge around. We tried covering those. We went down to size 20s. Didn't want to eat, and were one of those frustrating things. Then we've moved up into washing pit, into the head, and we've just hung a nymph off the back of the dry, just to see, as we were heading up, to see if we could stalk a bigger fish that was rising in the pool above. Had a smolt, and then you're properly off the mark now, Malcolm, aren't you?
Yes, a reasonable sized trout of about 14 inches, I would guess. So what's that? 12 to 14 ounces, maybe a bit bigger. But we can't weigh it, so we don't know for sure. But good size, good, and a very pretty fish, very well shaped, colourful fish. So excellent. And my only concern is my wading prowess with bad knees is letting me down a bit. So Pete is herring up the river well ahead of me. No, kidding, only kidding. So I have to be a little bit careful now with my wading. So gone are the days where I was jumping into pools and out again very easily. I'll have to be very careful. So Pete will have to bear with me on my slowness wading around the rivers. But I'm looking forward to this afternoon. And if we can spot a few more larger rising fish in the pool upstream, then hopefully we can drag a few more out during the course of the afternoon. So, yeah, great.
My gut is that if the wind eases, even for a few gusts for a time being, that'll be enough for the fish to go. And even where we're standing just inside, we landed the fish. I managed to get a quick photo of the fish before it let free. We showed it to Monty as well. He likes to see him. He's a great little fishing dog, though, isn't he? Doesn't get in the way, but knows what we're here for, and he's watching intently, isn't he?
Absolutely, he certainly is, yes. And he's Labrador through and through, but a well-trained one, which is, in my experience, usually unusual, because Labradors usually dead keen to get even more involved and in some cases even interfere with what's going on. But this chap is very good. Monty, you're a credit.
He's seen his fish, so he's happy, and it's really funny. It's like he comes from working dogs, and I think this is his equivalent of work. So he knows what we're here for. He's been sitting intently on the bank. He waded out with us for a bit, but he knows the rules. He doesn't wade ahead of us. He wades alongside us or just waits patiently on the bank. And then if some magic happens, then he's interested. And we had a salmon smolt that I showed him, and I even talked to him about it, which is ridiculous. But nice to net a nicer fish for Malcolm as well. So I'm really, really pleased about that. And then we're going to move up to Island Pool, and then we'll think about what we're going to do next. I might get some chairs out. We're going to have a look and see if we see anyone rising. I'm going to show him the pool because, of course, he's not seen this before. And I think if we get a nice one rising, this is probably where it'll be. It's relatively well sheltered here, comparable to where we were fishing earlier. So I'm hopeful of that, and we'll give that a really, really good go. Just wandering back to get some lunch now, but it's been an exciting, short little session where I hoped we'd see some rising fish. We've seen one, which Malcolm has covered really well. I think the biggest issue in this pool, and it looks a really simple pool to cast across and cover the fish, but actually the current in the middle really means that you have to be on your game with mending the line and introducing slack so that you can get a drag-free drift through there. I think he's done it really, really well. I was fully expecting the fish to eat, but didn't. They're sort of a bit circumspect. They're sort of there, but they're not really there in spirit at the moment. That's how it feels to me, that, you know, you just got to wait, I think, is probably the way of things. And perhaps a little bit more heat on the water as well won't do any harm. So we're going to have something to eat for 5 minutes, see what happens. You can probably hear the wind in the background now. I've moved away from where we actually were, so I think we're sheltered there, and I think that's going to be our best shot to find one of these nice rising fish. So I'm going to keep you posted with how we get on. I'm absolutely thrilled that he's had a nice-ish sort of fish, but yeah, I'd like to see if we can find one of those good ones for him. We had a late lunch. We had some homemade sausage rolls, some homemade cake with some cheese as well. We've sat on some fish that have sort of kind of been rising, but not rising hard. Malcolm's covered them perfectly and not been able to get them to bite. We've just stood out in the river for a bit. I think we've seen a fish rising, but it was lovely. We chatted, we smoked a cigar each as well, which was really, really civilised, and chatted. Malcolm's done a fair bit of fishing in lots of interesting places, but I just wondered, Malcolm, where your favourite place was to fish.
My favourite place, I've got to say, river-wise, it's probably the East Lynn and the Badgery Water down here in North Devon. But elsewhere, Assynt and Scowry in northwest Scotland are my sort of regular go-to annual fishing trips. And the fishing up there, it's lochs, not rivers primarily, but the fishing is phenomenal. And I've had some big ones out there. And I was telling Pete at lunch about en route to a lovely river, which I'm not going to tell you about because it's a secret. We go up a very long, narrow, very deep loch, and we always troll a Toby or a plug for the trout on the way up. And I hooked one massive fish that took out probably 100 feet of line as it went down vertically into 100 feet of water, and rubbed me off on a rock, and I lost my rapala. That fish, we think was probably high teens. That must have been the biggest ever brown trout. Had I landed it, I would ever have caught, but didn't. So yeah, Scotland for me, because there's rivers up there too, like the Spey and the Blackwater, which is a phenomenal little river that contains a huge number of, reasonable sized fish, and there's other rivers up there too which are fantastic. But it's a long way to go. Down here in the West Country, I've got to say that the Lynn and the Barle and the Exe, really any of the Exe small rivers are my favourite. Very closely followed by the East and West Dart on Dartmoor, and they're fantastic rivers. Phenomenal fishing, and look forward to visiting all of those in the very near future, before my knees get so bad that I can't walk.
And for you mentioned the Spey there. Does that mean salmon come into the equation for you?
Well, yes, we tend to fish the upper Spey where the salmon aren't through particularly early in the season, but the brown trout fishing on the Spey is also phenomenal. We've seen fish of £5 off of the Spey, caught by my friend John Williams, who sadly is no longer with us. And can you see the river runs around the back of the town and holds some huge brown trout all the way through. Actually, it's good for brown trout. The top, before you reach the Spey Valley, Strathspey, as you come up from Pitlochry, the Garry is also very good for trout, and the Tilt, and the Tunnel, which is also good for salmon as well. But the trout fishing is also excellent. Yes, easy to access, just off the A9. So if anybody's heading up that way, it's certainly worth trying the rivers for trout, not just salmon.
And you were, of course, involved with West Wiltshire Club that had that section on the Mole as well, and that was which is a tributary of the Tor, for listeners who don't know. It's the major tributary of the Tor, actually, but there was obviously that terrible pollution incident 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah, there was, that's right. And the farmer who was responsible for it was actually very, very supportive of the club. He didn't do it deliberately. It was his subcontractor who did it, but he had to take legal responsibility for it, and my heart goes out to him. I know some farmers are not as careful, and I just find it a great shame that that particular farmer, who meant well and is very supportive, found himself on the receiving end of Environment Agency prosecution. And it's his subcontractor who should have been prosecuted, but unfortunately that didn't happen. The farmer himself had to take responsibility. But yeah, that river, it was decimated for, I think, 10 kilometres downstream by all the slurry that went in from an unattended tank, and it destroyed not just the trout and the salmon, but also the insect life too. It is slowly coming back, 'cause it was probably 6-7 years ago it happened, and it is recovering, but it's taking a long time. Great shame.
And what have you got planned for this year? You're heading to Scotland this year? Heading
to Scotland next month, end of May. I'm going to Ireland with my other half for a holiday, and we are going to be near some of the big lakes, so I shall be packing a rod, but I have to be very careful. It's a family holiday.
Those things are very difficult. So when you do that, do you sort of get up early in the morning and have a wander down, or do you put a day aside to go?
It's usually when my wife is doing something else, she's having some beauty treatment or whatever. I might just slide out for a couple of hours fishing, or first thing in the morning. We had a holiday in France about 10 years ago when we were on the banks of the Vézère River, and I didn't book it, my wife booked it. She had no idea what she'd done. The Vézère is absolutely stacked full of trout, chub, carp, grayling, you name it, and I was out there every morning at 5 o'clock starting to fish, and I attracted the attention of the local bailiff, who, these guys, they are armed, 9mm automatic pistol in his belt. He came rushing across the field to see what I was up to, realised I was a fisherman, checked my licence, was quite happy. But I wouldn't recommend that if I hadn't got the licence, I think I'd have been in real trouble.
That's the interesting thing, isn't it? Family holidays and fishing. I've done it once with a bone fishing trip, and managed to get up, like you said, I was up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then would be back for breakfast so that I could do all the family stuff. And that balance is really, really difficult, isn't it, if you're on a family trip?
Yes, my wife absolutely hates fishing. I cannot encourage her in any way, shape or form to come onto the bank with me. So I have to take the opportunity without impacting the main holiday, which is, sightseeing and walking with the wife. So I have to be very careful. Now she'll probably hear this recording and think, he's dumped me in it.
You're fine, nobody's listening, so you'll be fine. Now, there's a couple of fish rising that while we've been talking, we got out, and against the far bank, there's a slight kink in the river here, and this has been more sheltered than anywhere else from the wind that's been blowing downstream for most of the day. The moment the wind stops for a little bit, the fish start to rise. That's encouraging. I've seen usually on the tour, you'll get the yellow mayflies coming first, and then that's followed by the danicas afterwards. But we did spot 2 danicas at lunchtime when we were sitting down having our lunch. We got the chairs out and sat down. Another fish just risen further up. So they're there. So there's an outside chance of it. As I said, they're being really picky today. They're not feeding hard. They've not made. It's a sort of a still early season. I always say on here that the tour takes a lot of time to warm up. And it feels like that's exactly what's been happening today, that the trout are just sort of stretching a little bit more than feeding hard at the moment. We've mixed fly patterns up. We've gone small, we've gone big. We've tried all sorts of different things to see if we can get them to play, and we'll continue to do that as well. But it's interesting seeing a danica this early. I can't recall seeing one in April before, and I don't know if it's that warm spell at the very end of March that sped things through. And on this river, the Granham would be at the back end of it now, but I think that happened a lot earlier here this year as well. So I don't know if we've seen things punch forward just a tiny bit. So it'd be interesting to see. The water's dropped away a little bit now as well. So the river here is at 0.29 of a metre, and that would be too low for salmon. Usually it depends on, what's been going on and stuff like that. But I don't mind here being 0.1, 0.2. The lower it is generally here for trout, the better it fishes. But we're on those sort of getting to those lower levels already. So it'll be interesting to see. The birds are singing. The saturation on the trees has been turned up to 11 now as well. Everything's got that lovely green tinge to it. Dog standing still next to me, watching everything intently at the moment. He'll start whinging about wanting his tea before too long as well, but I've got some biscuits for him should he need those. We've got some sausage rolls left. We've got a couple of fish rising again. While I last mentioned them, they've not gone again. And that's how today has been. Often here I'll stand here and wait for that moment. And I said to Malcolm, he said, what would you be doing? I said, well, if I was hunting them with the dry fly, I'd have probably gone home an hour ago. But, this is our day. This is a special day. So I'm trying everything in my power to try and make these fish come up and eat to dry at the moment. We've had a nice fish earlier, so I'm really happy about that. But I'd love one of these really nice sized fish to come up. Wind's just picking up again. And that definitely seems to be the moment the wind picks up, the fish stop again. So we'll watch quietly. What we might do is wade into position, see if we can stake a fish out. I'm thinking where we've seen them rising, there's a low branch between the two spots, and whether we try and give them a downstream dry or an upstream, I'm trying to figure out. I think a downstream might be a little bit easier, but we'll see if we can figure it out. As I said, I've gone bigger flies, we've gone smaller flies, we've gone size 20 flies, and haven't given them the good drift as well. But they haven't really shown that much interest. I put one of Bob Wyatt's deer hair emergers on, so we're going to try one of those in a minute. The fish have been sipping more than anything else, so that's what I'm going to try. I just think I can just see some rings of a fish now. So, as I said, getting them, they're not feeding hard in any way, shape or form at the moment. It's just sort of once as every now and again, but we're going to keep giving it a try.
Right.
So it's just coming up 7 o'clock, and we've sort of thought about calling it a little bit earlier, but decided not to. And of course, what do you do when you see a fish rise? You cover it, and that was kind of fun, Malcolm, wasn't it?
It was. We actually hooked something and landed it. And there's another good, 12-inch brownie, 3/4 of a pound, thereabouts, and a very beautiful fish. They're lovely looking fish, well shaped, well coloured. A superb end to the day.
Really was, and that was testament to Malcolm, because the wind picked up again. The casts were not easy ones, but he got it right in the right spot, and lo and behold, the fish ate. And it's lovely when that happens, and it's a little taster of what can happen here. And to me, it's felt like one of those earlier spring days, really, hasn't it? That we've had to grind the fish out. You've had a couple of nice ones, but I think you can get a sense of what it's about and what it looks like here. And it's slightly different, isn't it, to the upper river, a little bit, and you were fishing just upstream of here yesterday. Completely different river, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yes. The character and nature of the river, it's almost as if this section should be upstream of the section above it, which has got far steeper banks, deeper water in the main, and is more or less easy to fish. In terms of the steepness of the banks and the difficulty of wading. This section is still not easy, but it's easier than yesterday's. So I'm quite pleased to have been able to fish this section today. Not only the superb company with Pete and the food and the dog and the fish, but it's been just a generally wonderful day. Just enjoyed it so much.
Well, it's been a absolute pleasure to show it, and I'm always proud to show the river to people here. And it's been it's not been an easy day. I'm sitting in a hoodie with the hood up and everything else. It's been cold today, and I've remembered when I'm not fishing how cold I used to get. So it's a reminder of that. But it's been lovely, Malcolm. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and thank you again for supporting the auction. Thank you for supporting the Wild Trout Trust as well. It's been lovely to have you along today.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much, Pete. Enjoyed it.
So that's it for this episode of the podcast. Did I enjoy it? Well, of course I did. I enjoyed Malcolm's company. I enjoyed the fishing. I got to show off a water that means so much to me. The big fish were a little elusive. We saw them rising, just quite couldn't get to them. And I think one of the things out of this is, I'm used to the water, but when people aren't used to it, they don't see the micro things immediately. You've only got that short window of time to try and make an assessment. And one of the things that I've noticed on some of those spots where we're casting at those bigger fish is it's all about slackline, mending, and the drift as a result of it. So putting as much slackline in as possible is a really effective method, and I always work on the basis of that. If a fish hasn't taken, my first thing to think about is the drift and what has affected that drift. Has it made it look unnatural? So what do we need to do about it? So even from there may be a little tip that you can think about when you're out on the river. If that fish that was sipping away quite happily doesn't take, then perhaps there is the lovely term micro drift in there somewhere or other. So overcoming that can make a big difference to your success. Would I go back to being a guide? Well, I did it for 12 years or so, but I think now it's a younger man's game, and I think I just want to go fishing. I'm enjoying fishing too much. I've made that transition from standing next to somebody to being the person who holds the rod, and I'm enjoying that too much. So I won't be making a comeback, and I'm kind of pleased. There's, lots of younger people doing amazing jobs as fishing guides out there, and support them where you can. They do help, and they'll help you on the water. They'll help you get access to water. So if you are able to support that side of the community, that's wonderful news from there. But it's been a great day. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a little cool. The weather hasn't been as friendly as it could have been. That big downstream has made it a little bit tricky, but it's been great fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed Malcolm's company, and I've thoroughly enjoyed being back out in the water Again, not holding a fly rod. As ever, there's never going to be any charge for these podcasts. They're always going to be free, and I hope you enjoy them. I try really, really hard to try and mix up the content so that it's not always an interview-based podcast. We've had a little bit here and we've learnt about Malcolm, but I try really, really hard to make sure that the content, because we're 300 and something episodes into this, that I try really hard to make sure that we're not covering the same old ground each time. So I hope you enjoy those, and there'll be plenty more coming very, very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Fly Culture Podcast, brought to you in association with the Voice of Game Angling, Trout and Salmon, where Pete is the editor.